Yes, hi everybody and welcome to another video. Food for thought, my dear friends. This is that kind of a video, yes. Oh yes, I will be addressing the state of entertainment in 2024 and, as a matter of fact, the state of entertainment where it has been for the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, lately, shall we say. And it is a status quo. I think that it is a generally accepted fact that things are not very good. And that means both in the mainstream entertainment scene and in the independent entertainment scene. And I'm talking about all kinds of different media, literature, film, cinema, TV shows, video games, maybe not video games so much. I'm not that much of a gamer. But also poetry and music. And why is that? Well, I can provide you with my point of view, with my own personal experience. And you can then provide me with yours. This is, well, art we are talking about. These are art forms. And to a huge extent, all that we say about it, whether we like something or not, is a highly subjective matter, is it? We could, of course, venture into critiquing and reviewing and analyzing different works of art, which, of course, I would say that The Lord of the Rings or Beowulf, the old English epic poem, or the Canterbury Tales, anything really by, let's say, Charles Dickens or Edgar Allan Poe, or shall we say, even C.S. Lewis is much better than anything that is being written today in the respective genres. Now, my point of view is that throughout my life, I have developed a certain taste for stories. And this taste is of a very wide scope. I love all kinds of genres. I love all kinds of media. I have enjoyed since I went to university the oldest Germanic literature, epic poems from the British Isles, the Old Norse poems, both written in the alliterative verse. The Icelandic sagas, of course, masterworks in prose. But then, of course, later works of art, like recently I made a post about Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, which is like the peak of the Arthurian legend. Thomas Malory having been inspired by everything that came before him and made like an ultimate compilation of Arthurian story, setting it in his own time period, of course. And then if you go, for example, to the 19th century, where, it's very popular among people, there are many of my favorite poets there, and also authors, like Edgar Allan Poe. Who doesn't know Edgar Allan Poe, right? And then, of course, the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century, when the genres that we love and know nowadays were born, like the modern version of fantasy, that which we call fantasy nowadays. Of course, fantasy existed since people made up legends and myths, right, and folk tales. But what we know it nowadays, it really was born, I would say maybe even before that, at the end of the 19th century, even before Tolkien, if you think, for example, about Lord Dunsany. But then science fiction, of course, a genre that started in the form that we know nowadays with authors like H.G. Wells. And those are all extraordinary works of art. And then, those who came later, like Philip K. Dick, is my favorite science fiction author, Arthur C. Clarke, and so on and so forth. And then the other genre, once again, fantasy. We go further in time. We've got Terry Pratchett. We've got Michael Moorcock. We've got R.A. Salvatore. We've got all this, for me, newly discovered Warhammer and Warhammer 40k universe. Extraordinary works of art. I mean, the earliest ones. And then we could be naming on and on and on. And this is just literature I was mentioning. Look at films. Just look at the decade of the 1980s. Like for each month, for each week in this decade, there was something great being released. There's like at least 20, 30 films per 1 year of the 1980s that have acquired the status legendary, iconic, and classic. And then, of course, the very niche medium, which is the graphic novel medium, the comic book medium, which has been dwindling lately, has been very popular in Europe for a long time, has been very popular in the United States of America for a very long time, and has been popular in Japan and really all over the world. But those three branches, I think, are the leaders, the world leaders of the graphic novel medium, the graphic medium, the comic book. The Euro comics, or les bandes dessinées, the American comic books, and manga. And there are literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of titles in all these three branches that include icons, classics, works of art that are carved in stone of the world literature. And so, just if you look at the screen, just randomly, what I had in the computer, because I just shared it on social media, some of my favorite comic books or bande dessinée, Astérix, Le Gaulois, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It has been popular in the Czech Republic since I was a kid. I mean, I'm Czech, right? It's been my favorite comic book of all time. Slain by Pat Mills, especially when illustrated by Simon Bisley, my favorite illustrator. If you look to America, Mike Mignola's Hellboy, which by himself, just look at the cover of the second issue of The Seed of Destruction. Is it not a direct influence of H.P. Lovecraft? So, you read anything by Mignola, especially Hellboy, is it like 80% inspiration by Lovecraft? Once again. And then Lobo, come on. I mean, what is fascinating about it is like a comic book superhero, anti-hero really. It's very much anti-hero. Maybe even less so. Published by the American publisher DC Comics, but created and the best written and illustrated in the 90s by the British people. Just look at the names, Keith Giffen, Alan Grant, and Simon Bisley. You can't go better with Lobo. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Eastman and Ladd, as originally published by Mirage Comics. Not many people know that. The Ninja Turtles, they started in the 80s as very grim and dark black and white comic book. Absolute work of art. I consider it to be the best and the peak of the independent comic book scene. And then you go into other classics, like the film classics, like I'm blanking on the name. The guy who made Citizen Kane, the guy who provided the voice for Unicron in the 1986 Transformers, Orson Welles. Yes, good. Why did I call him George? Orson Welles' films. Alfred Hitchcock films. And so on and so forth. We ventured to Japan, Akira Kurosawa. I mean, listen, if you have taste for these things, if you have tasted the very delicious and very exclusive food that is being brought to you on a silver platter, will you be satisfied with a second-grade fast food that is being served to us, both in the independent scene and the mainstream? There is nothing from the last couple of years that I would be considered to be fantastically awesome. There are good things, and there are bad things. and you can find many reviews on my channel of contemporary entertainment. Just go and search through it. I have a playlist called Books and Films Recommendations. There are many. You can find. I am willing to say that there are a lot of good things being made today, but they are nowhere near those that I have mentioned throughout this video, and I could be mentioning for hours upon hours, which I'm not going to do. And so this could be one of the reasons why we are not satisfied with anything that is being made today. Because maybe we expect those things to be as good as those things that I've mentioned. And then again, very often it happens that those works of art, they claim and they acquire the status of legendary and iconic, yes, decades, even hundreds of years, after their conception, after their release. Sometimes it doesn't happen now. Sometimes it happens after a long time. Who knows? Maybe something has already been made in the last couple of years that will have the status of legendary in 100 years. Who knows? For the people in the future? Who knows? I don't know. I don't like it now. Right, so let me know in the comments down below what you think. And that'll be all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm out of here.